Well, hello there. My name is Chris Barton.
And I'm Jennifer Ziegler.
And we both write books for young people, and we love talking with friends of ours who also write books for young people about the dedications in their books. That's what this one's dedicated to is all about. Today, we're talking with our friend Cynthia Leitich Smith. Hello, Cyn.
Hello, I'm so delighted to be here with both of you.
We're glad to have you here to talk about your book and the dedication in your book, Jingle Dancer.
Would you mind reading aloud the dedication in your book?
Certainly. The dedication reads, "To my great Aunt Anne, Mrs. Anne Arnold, CLS."
And what can you tell us about your great aunt and why you dedicated the book to her?
Oh, so much to say. My great auntie and I were very close. We were even roommates for a while when I was in my 20s. I worked briefly during law school one summer at the Dallas Morning News. She was living in Dallas at the time. And so I stayed with her in her little apartment. And it was such a transformative experience for me in some ways. I was just sort of coming of age myself and gaining my independence and confidence as a young woman. And she was very generous in sharing stories of her childhood, insights into the life of her brother, my grandfather. And because he had passed many years before, what he might have wanted to tell me at this particular time, I remember my fellow reporting interns asking me to go out to play after work in downtown Dallas, such a vibrant city. And I kept saying, no, I must go home to my great auntie, who was much more fun than any of them could ever hope to be.
No, did she know, did she get to enjoy this dedication? Was she able to? Okay, good.
Yes, she was living at the point of the publication of the book. She was extremely proud. She referred to it as her book, which was completely appropriate, and would bring it up in conversation regardless of the topic, really. It didn't matter. Any segue could go to Jingle Dancer.
So was at what point in creating the book did you know you had to dedicate it to her?
Well, my relationship with my aunt was very influenced by her relationship with my grandfather. He had died the year I was born, before I was born. And so often in families, I think and he was a fairly young man at the time, he was only in his 40s. When there is a sudden death like that and a new baby coming, I think that part of the healing is sort of a transfer of emotion to that young child, and the sense that this is the continuity of life, the continuity of the family, perhaps even carrying something of the spirit, ancestral memory, if you will, of the person who has been lost. So because they were particularly close, and the timing of my birth and his death, she was someone who said to herself at the time, this child doesn't have that grandparent. And even though she would have been a very involved auntie regardless, that added an extra layer to the dynamic between us and her feeling of heightened responsibility toward me. The reason that I made the connection to Jingle Dancer is because of one of the core themes of the book, which is about the relationship between girls and women over generations in terms of handing down a cultural tradition. The Jingle Dance is originally a women's dance that comes from the Ojibwe people, but has spread across the continent, is very closely tied to healing. And it's a dance that is specific to really originally girls and women, and now more and more Two-Spirit people are dancing as well. But I thought, well, we need to have contemporary depictions, but we also need depictions of girls and women that go beyond sort of invisible beasts of burden or Yoda-like elders and showed some vibrancy. And because of the nature of the jingle dance and the traditions handed down, this gave me an opportunity to show different generations coming together over a shared tradition. Because so many of the mass media depictions of Native people are centered on regalia, on powwow. If you see Native people in the news, oftentimes they're in full regalia. That I wanted to unpack that a little bit for kids and contextualize it, that the people who are, wearing that gorgeous regalia are also going home to houses that have books and televisions and couches. And so it seemed like a natural bridge for young readers.
19 years after Jingle Dancer was published, you had a piece called Amazing Auntie Anne in I Remember Poems and Pictures of Heritage, which was edited by Lee Bennett Hopkins. I assume this was the same Anne that you dedicated Jingle Dancer to?
It was indeed. I had this really wonderful experience with Lee associated with participating in the book. And my mind immediately went to from, an elder in this part of my life to an elder in my more personal life. And so that connection came together for me. And I thought, well, all right, this might be a way to honor some of the vibrancy of my auntie's memory, and she was such a huge personality and had achieved an almost legendary status in the family, that I thought, well, I can do this from my point of view as a young child, remembering one moment in time, and perhaps that will resonate with other kids and connecting them to the elders in their own lives.
Well, one thing I noticed when you read the dedication from the original edition of Jingle Dancer was it was to my great aunt Anne, and we have the new edition, the Heartdrum edition, and it's in memory of my great aunt Anne. Why was it important to you to update the dedication?
Initially, when I wrote the story, it lived as a gift that I was presenting to my auntie. That was part of, I was presenting it to her, I was presenting it to young readers, but she was the source. And, we honor our elders first. When I look at it now, I see it as part of her legacy. When you look at what a life is, there is your physical life in the world, and there is how your memory lingers, what you have influenced, who you have changed. Every time your name is spoken, you are alive in a certain way, and not everyone has that. And so this was also a way of my reinforcing her presence in the world and her influence on me, and more broadly as well, because she is touched by virtue of that relationship countless children, and not only on this continent, but around the world. We changed videotape to video in the main text, which it sounds small, but that kind of a detail could take young readers out of the story, especially if this edition endures from another 20 years. I can readily imagine children saying, what is a videotape? How strange of a concept. And then that would, dilute the magic of suspension of disbelief. So that was an important change.